Pepper says, are you ready to start organizing some of these kitchen cabinets? I know I am. Hello everyone and welcome back to A Hoarder's Heart. For today we are back in this kitchen decluttering another round of these cabinets for our spring cleaning series. Now, last week I had a hoard of napkins and I actually did take some of them and put them in the everyday napkin basket, and I totally forgot to show that, and so many of you suggested that to me, so I'm thankful and grateful that you did that because it shows that I'm aligned with the right kind of thinking now. And also, I believe the name was Object Dart. The idea of bringing all the leftover like napkins and paper goods to your picnics is the sweetest idea, and I just love that, and we're totally going to do that too. So now let's circle back around. We're going to get the cabinets above the oven, above and below the oven, and then also above and below the microwave. So let's get in here and start pulling everything out. So we're going to start with the cabinets underneath of the oven. This is where I store a lot of my baking sheets, my baking pans, things that tend to go into the oven when you're cooking. So all I'm doing right now is just taking everything out so I can see what I have in here. And I have to admit that I've always struggled with organizing. I mean, a lot has to do with the hoarding disorder. But now that we've decluttered, I feel like I fail at organizing because I'm always copying someone else's system or trying to repeat a perfect Pinterest plan that doesn't work for me. I feel like I need an organizational system based on how I naturally move, think, and function in the kitchen, and start paying attention to my real life habits, my subconscious routines, and the way I actually cook, clean, and live in the space. Instead of forcing myself to change my behaviors to fit a system, I'm trying to create a system that supports my behaviors. And that means putting items where my hands naturally reach for them, storing things near where I use them, and honoring the flow I already have because my brain already has a pattern, even if it was formed during cluttered chaos. And I'm calling it intuitive organizing because I'm aligning my space with my true self, not some idolized version of how I should be. All right, now let's pause a moment and talk about the stuff that we actually pulled out. Now, I'm looking around. This elf pan is a seasonal thing. We only use it once a year, so I can put that in the bin. This cupcake, we kind of use this pan maybe once a year, so maybe we should think of relocating it. Same with this. I don't think this has been used in a very long time, so it doesn't need to be put in a high traffic area like underneath of the oven. But these trays, these are definitely used on a weekly basis. And looking at the donut one, yes, it's not used as much, but man, we really got to rinse this off. Now, these trays and storage containers, I use a lot, especially in the summertime because I do a lot of potluck. But I think I should relocate that to another place. Now, I don't know if this is an ADHD thing or not, but I am always leaving tags on items that I've had for years. So it's about time that we finally take this off. Now, this is going to go back into the bottom cabinet, and I'm going to be putting back the baking trays, the cooking pans, those things that I use on a weekly basis. When I'm cooking dinner during the week and I need to put something in the oven and need a pan or a baking sheet, that's automatically where I reach, is in this bottom cabinet. Since it's a subconscious routine that I have established for well over a decade, I'm not going to change it up. Now, this baking sheet, I love this baking sheet. This was where the alcohol was last week. And I'm going to move it to over here because this is where the bigger baking pans are going to be stored. And for the smaller baking pans in different sizes, I'm going to put this in the top shelf, just stacking them on top of each other. That way I know where they're at, and when I need it,
I know exactly where to go. Now, these items right here, I'm just temporarily placing here because I either use it once a year or I want it stored somewhere else that makes more sense for my behaviors. And don't forget, we still have some items from last week that were temporarily set up here because the liquor cabinet, it still has some storage space. So as we're organizing, as we're rearranging, we're going to figure out a better strategy. Okay, so let's move up to the cabinets above the oven. Now that's the home to more appliances. A lot of appliances live up here, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start taking everything out. It was Cass from Clutterbug who first introduced me to the idea of personalized organizing, and it completely changed how I saw my space. When I discovered I was a butterfly, it all finally made sense. I realized I was messy, but I could actually declutter, clean, and organize. I just needed a system that worked with how my brain naturally functioned. It opened up my eyes that I had to go deeper. I had to recognize what my daily routines and habits are in each room, in each space. Like the cabinet space above the oven, it's been the home for appliances since we moved here. It's not just convenient, it's intuitive. So we're just going to reorganize it better, not move it to a completely different space. Now, I will admit that all these appliances, we do use them regularly throughout the year. We've decluttered enough appliances that I'm pretty much at the bare bones of what I use. Now, I'm still scanning the area because I'm like, what can I get rid of? Because I'm keeping this waffle maker because we make the big waffle makers. And I'm keeping the little one because I like to put the Pillsbury cinnamon rolls in there and make like the mini waffles like that. But the box was in there. And this is an empty box, so we can totally toss that out. Now, I've had this hand mixer since college. It is over 20 years old, but I like keeping it in the box because it's easier to store that way. Now, I just saw we got a little schmutz there. We're going to have to wipe that off, but that's why I've always kept it in the box. Now, I was thinking I could really use a little shelving unit in the back to put the smaller things. And I remember I had one in the basement in the hoard of organizers. And when I tell you, I am so happy I remembered and we had one. I was thrilled using my hoarded stash because I was really trying to not spend any money in this series. And look at how perfectly the mixer in the box just slides right next to that shelving unit. Like, it just made me so happy because I knew that I wanted to fit the smaller appliances in the back, the ones that we don't use as often, and utilize that vertical space. And this is absolutely perfect in storing this. I'm really excited how this came out. Now, the appliances that were tall but small, I was putting up here because it fits better in this shelf. That's going to be the little mini blender, the little hand blender. Now, the food processor, I had a harder time because it didn't fit, so I had to keep the top off so I could slide it in there. But overall, I love how this is organized so much better. Now, the front spot is going to house the two bigger appliances, which is going to be the crock pot, a very frequently used appliance, and the blender. It's the only space that it really fits in, so that's fine. It's useful. It works for me. I know exactly where to find it, and I'm happy about this. All right, next up is going to be that spice cabinet. Yes, this is where I keep the spices, the oils, because it's right next to the stove. It's easy for me to grab. And all I'm doing again, I'm just taking everything out because we haven't decluttered the spices in a very long time. And I know that some of these spices are well past their expiration date. I also know that I probably have doubles of things because it was so unorganized that if I couldn't find it right away and I went grocery shopping, I would just buy another one. Now, I'm quickly looking at the expiration dates, and I'm going to say you're going to be very proud of me because if it expired in 2024, I'm going to keep it. But anything that's before that, like 2023 and above, yeah, I'm actually letting that go. So as we're getting the rest of the spices and checking the dates, I do want to talk a little more in depth about intuitive organizing, because it's about trusting your instincts, your routines, and your lived experience. It's not about copying someone else's perfectly labeled system. It's about tuning into the way you already function and letting your space reflect that. You're listening to the wisdom of your daily habits, the things you do without even thinking, and designing your environment to support those rhythms instead of fighting against them. For example, the tea is stored up here because every morning I make my tea in the microwave. I know I don't have a kettle, and I think the kettle on the stove is adorable, but I was never raised on that. I was raised on heating up the water in the microwave and then sipping the tea from there. That's why the boxes are there. That's why the sugar is also there. Now, I do get kidney stones, and many of you know of the kidney surgery that I had. So a lot of the black tea is probably going to be old because I had to stop cold turkey drinking black tea. I am allowed green tea matcha sparingly. And if I have a cup, that means I have to drink a lot of water afterwards to flush any crystals out. I am allowed all herbal teas. That is what I'm allowed to do. But after I found all that out from the urologist, I never went through the tea. So now's the time. And there are some good flavors in here, because that salted caramel tea and the toasted coconut tea, oh my gosh, it was so good. It was my favorite. But the boxes were pretty much empty. We had a lot of empty boxes and things way past expiration dates. Even with the spices, there were empty spices and some that were full. So I want to recycle those containers. So right now, I'm just emptying out the spices, putting them in the trash can. That way I can take the containers and put them all in the trash. Now, this does take a little longer to do, but I'm okay with that because I feel a lot better about throwing stuff away if I know I'm recycling it. And of course, the tea that I can have, I'm going to put back into this basket and slide back into the cabinet. Now, I may be changing this rearrangement in the future, but for now, this is good. Now, the beauty of intuitive organizing is that it meets you where you are. It honors your neurodivergence, your energy levels, your unique routines, and your emotional relationship with stuff. It doesn't demand perfection or push you to become someone else. It just gently supports the person you already are. And as I develop this is meant to just be in addition to your organizational toolbox, because I'm not trying to poo-poo on Pinterest pictures or labeling systems. I just needed something more, and my prayer is that it helps other people too. Now, if you remember, here's some of this stuff that was in the cabinet underneath the oven, but I didn't want it there. Remember last week when we had the alcohol cabinet and there was still space in here? Well, I'm putting those items in there because this pan I pretty much only use around Thanksgiving or Christmas. And these bowls, I don't use them as much as I should. So this back cabinet is kind of like I don't use as much, or I use for Thanksgiving as Miss Peppy is checking out our progress. I think this space will work because there's already some Thanksgiving stuff in here, and that's pretty much when I pull out the alcohol. Now, here's some of the leftovers. The cake pan, I need to rehome, same with this one. And these lids, I don't know what these lids go to, so I have to put them in the limbo bin until I find the bottoms to these lids. Now, overall, I love how these cabinets came out. They're nice, clean, and organized. And I used it by honoring my behaviors, my routines. Why? Because it's sustainable. It feels natural. You're not consistently trying to remember how a system works because my brain already knows how it works. I built this based on how I'm already living. And my hope and my prayer is that this video motivated to encourage you to clean, declutter, and organize something in your home today too.